Welcome to sNAPAshots, conversations with professional, practicing, and applied anthropologists.
I first started taking coursework, and I was in a field school for anthropology. I remember talking to my dad about it because that was really something that not a lot of Native people did, and certainly not a lot of Pueblo people did. And because of there was this connotation, that archaeologists, basically, grave diggers. And that was something that is certainly that you don't do as a Pueblo person. And so I remember just kind of talking to him about that, and he just basically was telling me that that if what I'm doing, with in a sense of a good heart, or with a positive nature, and I don't look for graves or whatever and to take my own personal precautions, that I should be okay, but to always seek guidance, in a sense, always seek guidance from both those who are living and those who are past. My professor, Ruben Mendoza, he was very, very, very accommodating about that. Certainly at that time, maybe not every professor would be, but he would put me in units where he felt it was unlikely that we would strike, a burial or anything like that. And luckily, we were in these rock shelters out in the hogbacks outside of Denver, where there's not a lot of a long-term occupation, so it was fairly unlikely. And but he was always just super accommodating. If he ever thought we were getting anything close to something like that, he would give me the option of moving further away, or to avoid it as well. And then he would talk to the other students as well about these sensitivities, because this is only just literally a few years, 3 years post passage of NAGPRA. And so it's still being, still being debated, and there's still this earlier mindset about it. Kind of carried that with me ever since, about trying to be, as I feel that I'm a conduit, in a sense. I'm a conduit between the Native people and the Pueblo people, and the museums. And it's less of a change now, because certainly back then it was a very different mindsets. But now as we're now certainly almost 30 years into NAGPRA, and the establishment of tribal historic preservation offices in many communities, that there's more of a shared body of knowledge, and I think that's continuing now. But back then, I kind of really saw myself as a conduit, trying to get each other to understand the other. And if my mom, she was always just happy with whatever I did, that I was employed, and that I was earning a living, and that I was happy with what I was doing. And so I think that was her main concern for me. Whereas my dad also, she certainly had concerns about my other well-being, certainly, beyond physical, but also spiritual, and mental as well. I've always felt that, particularly for Native people who are raised in, especially in a traditional community or in a traditional way, that sometimes they're kind of de facto anthropologists, that they have to, they're raised in one culture, and then yet at the same time they have to learn how to navigate in another culture, and be able to kind of understand that. And the way they do that is by generally participant observation, and that's certainly how I got through school, how I got through college, is by doing that. So that you've always kind of got these anthropological practices kind of almost ingrained, and then you learn it the formal way, as you go through school, but you've kind of always been kind of doing something similar, in your own personal or private life. As they say, with this position, there's a great deal of responsibility, and that you have to be able to navigate many different waters, and some of them can be treacherous, and some can be calm, and sometimes it can turn, very quickly. And that you have to be able to talk to people without letting, sometimes if you have very private or certainly strong feelings about something, but that what's the most important thing is to be able to communicate with people. And again, which is what anthropology tries to do, is being able to let people understand, in a sense, the world, or understand ourselves. And that's what I was like, we're trying to do, is make people understand, is what I'm doing, why am I doing it, and also let people understand, like, why do like Native people, like, have this perspective, or sometimes what are these negative perceptions they have maybe of anthropology, archaeology, and how we can both, in a sense, maybe learn from each other, but also that, that it's a new, certainly started going when I was going to the AAA conferences. But anything I thought that looked interesting, I went to it, even though if it was like way out of my area, because I realized that because you never knew what you were going to get out of it, what you were going to pick up from it. And over time, it certainly, you become a known commodity to people, but also you just gain these share these experiences from people that they'll help you, like both your cohort, your colleagues, and then your elders, if you will, that everyone has something to offer to you. And then even today now, sometimes it can take a while, but you realize that now, I certainly realize that those even that entering are younger than you can also help you continue to grow and expand. And I think that is something that sometimes isn't expanded upon in schooling. There are things that I do now that when I first started, I was just too incredibly self-conscious, like to speak to people, to ask questions, but then you kind of like learn, that's the only way you can to learn, to grow, is to do that. I remember one of my first conferences, they had this young professionals mixer, and I went to it, and I was just like too shy, too self-conscious. I couldn't go in. And so I remember I remember leaving, and I just felt like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why am I acting this way? But over time, then, it kind of realizes, well, because, no one's judging you. And if they are, who cares? Basically, you're just going in, and then you're just, meeting people, saying hi, having some snacks. And then, because then that's how you're going to like find other people who, are on your wavelength. And so that's something that I think also just kind of comes with practice. We have this belief generally that, that there's a right to knowledge, that all knowledge is to be known. But in some cultures, it's not the case. That knowledge, again, has a responsibility, that you have to be able to earn that right to know that knowledge. And so that's something that's sometimes going to be quite different. And I can certainly see that here when people come and they see some of the like the dances, like at some of the feast days out here in New Mexico, and they realize that, yeah, there's this way people have been engaging, that this isn't a performance. This is actually it's a right, R-I-T-E. It's something that people do and have done and will continue to do, because it's their way of basically seeking balance in the universe, which is something that we all kind of do in one way or the other. And that is something like anthropology can help all do, as well as seeing how balance is achieved in different ways. That in anthropology, that you can do so many things, like I said, just like I said, just keep an eye out, like on the expos, looking at the other videos, that you can find people that have a background in anthropology in the most unexpected places. And that's happened to me before. Something that you'll find everywhere. And so I think that just, and find your place within it. Ruben Mendoza, who just recently retired from Cal State Monterey Bay, and he was an archaeologist, but also had done a lot of work in cultural as well. And so he really kind of showed me that you could have these varying interests and still make them be able to work in a career that you want to do. And also he pointed out that it's not always about like how much you'll make, whatever, too, but as long as you're happy, or that you're if you follow the intellectual pursuit, I think as he put it, that that there'll be something that will engage you for the rest of your life.
Like what you see? Let us know. Find us at practicinganthropology.org, LinkedIn, Meta, X, Bluesky, and YouTube. SNAPAshots.